Why does everybody love RAW so much? I hope to show a little of that here. You may have heard that RAW images require edit before they can even be used. It's really not that spooky. Yes, you do have to set white balance and output a JPEG, and you can do a whole lot more if you want to improve your images a whole lot more. For example, you set white balance and exposure in the camera, and you don't call that edit. And here we can see the image now. We know how it came out. We know what it should have done. We know what it needs. We can fix it. Same white balance and exposure, and I don't call that edit. I call it correction. The alternative to that is you don't correct your images. Anyway, this is Adobe Bridge. It's the file manager part of Photoshop. These are disk folders where your images are downloaded from your memory card. And this is a portrait session with studio lights. The point is the studio lights are the same in every picture. So we can correct white balance in one and apply that to all in one click. And it's real fast and it's real easy and it's real good. And the way we do that is we put a white card in the first picture, sort of a test picture, and we can adjust white balance from that. Here is another session with a white card. Here's another one with a white card. Here's another one with a white card. I'm going to click one, and we see the EXIF data, and the point is the camera was set to flash. That is not in the RAW file, in the RAW data. RAW files have no white balance in them, but the camera applies that white balance to the rear LCD preview it shows us, so it looks halfway right color there. I'm going to select all of these on the keyboard. I'll type Control A, which selects all of them. There are 52 of them in this folder. And I'm going to right click and open in Camera Raw. And this is Adobe Camera Raw. It's the same RAW module in Lightroom and in Elements. Now, Lightroom rearranges the screen quite a bit in its own way, but it's the same RAW module and the same tools and does the same job in the same way. Elements, I think, only has this first basic tab. There are other tabs that do other jobs. That's not really all that necessary always. Most all the time, everyone is in this first Basics tab. That's where white balance and exposure is. And Elements will do that. Since this is a studio session with fixed lights that's always all the same, I'm going to select all of these images. So any changes I make to one is applied to all. And white balance here, as shot, is what you see the first time. And that's Adobe telling us that it tried to apply to this RGB image that we're seeing the white balance it thought was in the camera. Temperature degrees K is not in the EXIF data. It's sort of encrypted in there, and Adobe kind of takes their shot at it. It's never quite right, in my opinion. We have to set white balance. And this was a flash session. So for all of these, select all. For all of these, I'm going to select flash. Now, the point here is RAW editors are designed to do camera jobs. They have camera tools. They're not like photo editors. Photo editors don't have white balance menus in them. Photo editors don't have exposure menus in them. We can come in here and we can change the exposure, however we want to change it. But RAW is designed for the camera, and so for all of them, I'm going to say flash white balance. Click. And it went a little lower, 5500K. And these RGB numbers right here are the numbers in the pixels under the cursor. And that's telling us that blue is just a little high. 204 is a little higher than 193. And you can see on the histogram blue's a little higher. And you can look at this blue card and see it's just a little bit blue. So that's what probably would have got out of the camera. It's close, but it's flash color varies with flash power level. There's just no one color of flash. Nikon and Canon flashes don't even specify color temperature because it varies with level. The camera has a number it calls flash white balance. That's just an assumption of what it thinks the flash that it hadn't even seen yet might be, and Adobe does the same thing here. But it's not necessarily right, and you can see this is a Porta-Brace white balance card. It's $5 at B&H. It's nothing fancy. It's just an accurate white color, neutral white color. And we can see that blue's a little high the way it came out. But we have a white balance tool. And I'm going to click the white card. Click. And you see the numbers there, 196, 196, 196 are the new numbers of this pixel. That's equal. Red is not higher. Blue is not higher. They're equal. That means it's neutral. That means there is no color cast. That's applied to the whole image. This is as good as it gets. There is no color cast there now. And we can do that in one click. And in this case of the studio fixed lighting, we can do that on all pictures in one click. Now you can use gray cards. They're pretty close. They're not bad at all. This background paper here is Savage paper. This color is Thunder Gray. And if I click on that, the color there is 81, 81, 82. That's pretty close. If I click here, there's 79, 79, 79. It'll vary a little as you move around and click different places. Not much. Doesn't matter. But now we told the computer we know that spot is neutral. Make it be neutral. And it did. The problem is we don't know for sure that spot is technically neutral. We know this spot is. So that's the way it works. This Thunder Gray paper is pretty good stuff. This has a background light on it now, but you can vary that background light and vary the brightness of that background, and you can make it look in a lot of different ways. It's really pretty good stuff. And in fact, you can put color gels on it. I have some down here. She wanted a red background, so I did it for her, and a few of them. You put a color gel on it, and middle gray is good to do that with. I'm getting off track. Okay, I'm going too slow. I'm sorry. I'm going to cancel out of here because I really don't want to change all those pictures. So I'm going to cancel out of there. And I've got a little smaller session here. I hope to show more. Control A selects them all. Right click, open Camera Raw. And these are different pictures now. Let's start with this one. But they're different. You know, I can't use the same thing on all of them because they're all different. These four are about the same. We'll come back to those. I can do those four at once, but this one has to be done individually. This is a indoor picture with the overhead ceiling room light, the regular incandescent room light. Now, the flash here happened to have been, the camera happened to have been set to flash white balance, and as shot comes out too orange, bad try, but we don't care. It doesn't matter what that says. We're going to set tungsten because it is. This is the overhead room light. Adobe uses the word tungsten. The camera uses the word incandescent. They're the same thing for white balance because incandescent bulbs have tungsten filaments. So it's the same thing. It says 2850K. But if we put the cursor here, 192, 176, 150, red is a lot higher than blue. Can you see that? That's just not good color. But I have a white balance tool, and I just click somewhere on the card. Click. And now that spot says 175, 175, 177. Down at this low end of the scale, these numbers don't always come out exactly equal down at this end, and I'm not sure just why, but it's a harder job down here. But it doesn't matter. That's very near. That's almost exactly neutral white color. That's as good as it's going to get. That's good stuff. If I click on this yellow, just to show you one more time, it removes the yellow and makes our picture go blue. That's not good. But if I click over here, is this known white. Now there's a lot of white things in our scenes a lot of the time that are supposed to look white. This is white paper from the craft store. Just use this background paper here. Click. That says 2550K. plus 6. Here is white found in the scene that's supposed to be white, and I click it. It says 2550 plus 7. Here's a white card known to be white. Click 2550 plus 6. Those are all the same thing. That's good color. Any of those are great. So you can often find white things in your subject, but sometimes things that are nearly white like this, that's not that white. Although it came out pretty close. But this is better. This picture is underexposed. It's an all white picture. It has a white background paper. It has the white card in it. It has this white cup in it. It's just all white. Reflects light very well. It fools reflected meters. We just knew when we walked up to this scene it was going to be underexposed. We knew we should have put about +1 EV compensation in the camera for it. To fix that, I didn't do it. Light meters try to put everything in the middle, pretty much. That's all they know to do. They don't know this is a white cup. They don't know the white cup from your Aunt Minnie. They can't recognize any of that kind of stuff. They just put stuff in the middle. This scene is a brighter scene, ought to be brighter than the middle. But it's raw, and I can just come in here and I just run it up a bit, okay? Now I'm kind of looking at that, but you look at your scene. That's too bright, I think. Overdid it. I'm going to back it off. That looks a little better. But the point is we fixed the underexposure. This picture is also crooked. The camera is not level. Sometimes I do that. We have a straighten tool. And I just mark a line that should be straight, should be level. And it crops it so that it is level. It could be a vertical line too, but this card's leaning back a little. The perspective can fool us sometimes on vertical lines. This crop tool is showing us this image of the cropping, but if I select any other tool, it shows me the final image, the way it really will look when we're done. We can do other things with the crop tool. We can actually crop it. If I move this down here and move this, there we go, I like that. So we can crop it like that if we wanted to. And it'll look like that if we wanted to. You have to pretend this is a great picture. We've made it look great. But the point is, this is so much better than it came out of the camera. We fixed that it was too orange. We fixed that it was too dark. We fixed that it wasn't level. Just better than it comes out of the camera. And you can do that so easily. On these pictures, these are stars at night. There's 4 of them. I'm going to hold down Shift and click the top one to select these 4. So anything I do affects all 4. We have to set white balance. I'll say daylight. Our sun is a star, but that doesn't look quite right. We have auto here, same as in the camera. Auto. That looks better. Exposure. I'm going to bump it up some here. I don't know where. You can do, a lot of things with it. I'm going to say there. Do you notice that the corners are dark? That's vignetting. That's what wide angles lenses do, especially at wide aperture. This is a 14 to 24 millimeter lens. It's at 15 millimeter. It's at f2.8, and that's just what they do. They vignette the corners, make them dark. They cannot cover the full frame evenly, and the corners fall off. But some of these other tools, we have one here called Lens Profile Corrections. The edit I'm going to do on these 4 is I'm going to click that box. That's not really very hard to do. Watch the corners up there. Click. It removed the vignetting. The corners are no longer dark. It also removed the distortion. Wide angle lenses have distortion. Like if we had straight lines in this image, like a building. Buildings have straight lines and they might be curved with wide angle. You've seen that. This fixes that too. It knows we used this lens, 14 to 24 millimeter. It has database of, I don't know, I guess about all lenses here. has a database, and it knows it was 15 millimeter. It knows it was f2.8. It knows what's going to happen, and it knows how to fix it, and it does. That's pretty nice stuff. It has sliders here that you can control the degree of what it does. Going back to the Basics tab, blacks, I can reduce the black level some. Color shifts a little. We need to come back and work on that. But we did that pretty easily. Here's another image. This is a daylight image. And we had to set white balance, and I'll say daylight. Now this one's underexposed. So I can come in here and I can run the exposure up some. For right now, I'm going to back that out. You can double click these sliders and they go to default settings. Double click. That's how it was. And we have an auto button here. And I'm going to click auto. Click. And auto changes all these settings as it deems necessary. It changed that one and that one and that one and that one. It does not change white balance. You have to do white balance. But it changes the tonal settings. And so this is what it thought it ought to be. I'm not sure if I should say this, but the RAW module has preferences you can set, and one of those preferences is that it will apply this auto settings to all RAW images automatically when you open them. The first time. I think after you've changed them, then it won't. It will apply this auto settings automatically to all your images if you want it to do that. And it's pretty good stuff. The problem with doing that is now you don't see your mistakes. You don't see that this image was too dark and you did it wrong, and you ought to know you did it wrong so you'll know not to do it next time. I think we ought to see what we're doing. But anyway, you can set auto to be default on all your images if you want to. It's pretty good stuff sometimes, but I like to see them too. Okay, white balance. We just set daylight because this is daylight. You may not yet be aware, but there are no dark shadows here. This is not bright daylight because there's just no dark shadows. I think that's a shadow right there behind the person. The usual dark shadows just aren't here. This post ought to be pretty dark, and it's not. So this is cloudy because there's no shadows. And so let's set cloudy white balance. Watch the colors. Watch the image. Click. That's better. That's just better. Okay. Now we can also look for white things in our images. I'm going to make this be bigger so we can see it. I don't know if you can see, but right here, this spot is a little special because it's sort of a big white spot that's kind of solid, more so than some of the other. It's kind of a solid white spot right there. Another one here, another one there. But anyway, with the white balance tool, I'm going to click in that white spot. And the color, now it's 6500. Click, it goes to 67. It's not a big change, but the tint went up to plus 26. It's less green now. And I like that. As far as the water goes, I like that. Now, the leaves are not as green either. Let's come back to full view, full size. And this is with that click in the white. And I'm going to change it to cloudy again. Click. And so that's more green leaves, but the water, I don't know. It's up to you. You're seeing it. You know what it looks like. You know what you want it to look like. And you just fix it. Now, there's white here, too, in the image that we can click on. This white is sort of in the shade behind this person. It's not in the light that all the rest of the scene is. But we can click it, and the 6500 changes to 7800K. I don't think that's going to be good. We could have said shade white balance. Click. That's 7500, almost the same number. And here is cloudy. Click. I think cloudy's best. But you are looking at it. It's your picture. You just fix it. You can do that now. That's the point of RAW. Okay, so that's enough. We're done. I'm going to say done. And we see our changes here being applied to these images. That's what we've done. We have to output JPEGs so other programs can see the same thing we're seeing here. They can't look at these raw images, but so we output JPEGs for them. And this is lossless editing. That's kind of a big deal. For example, if I right click again and open in Camera Raw again, go to this image, go to the crop tool, we still have all of our original image. We did not lose anything. It's lossless editing. The pristine raw file is always kept. Actually, I don't think it's possible to change a raw file. We don't have any tools to change raw files. What is saved is the original raw file, and what is saved is the list of these changes that we made, and any excess of them, like when we output a JPEG, it applies these settings to that, and this is what we'll get, but we still have our original stuff. We can clear this crop. I'm going to right click. Did I show you this? We can change aspect ratio of this crop too. Here's 4:6 shape to fit 4:6 paper. See how it's tall and thin? And we can select 8:10, which is shorter and wider. We can fit our paper that way. I like to say 5:7 because it's kind of a compromise in between. But anyway, I'm going to clear the crop, and now we have our full image, and I'll say done, and here's our full image. It's lossless editing, and that's a really big deal. Okay, we're done. I do think it's easy to predict that RAW can change your life, your photographic life for sure. That's assuming that you will look at your pictures and simply do what you see that they need. It's also simple and easy and fast. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Thank you for listening.